Hello, this is David Sloane with the North Plains Groundwater Conservation District, and I just wanted to give you an update on what's been happening at the Water Conservation Centre. So it's Monday morning and I'm just doing my usual check-in. And we've been fertigating on the subsurface drip system over the weekend, and I just wanted to see how it was going. So the first thing I did is I checked in with the NetFM GrowSphere software, and I could see, oh, it's not running. Why wasn't it running? And I hadn't had any weather updates or anything. So the first thing I did is I flipped over to PivotTrack. Well, I saw there was an alarm, and the alarm actually said that it shut down due to water pressure. So if I flipped over to PivotTrack, I could actually see that the pivots had stopped running. And so my next question was, why had the pivots stopped running? So I then flipped to the PivotTrack rain page, and I could see, wow, we've just been blessed with some great rain. So if I zoom in here to the Water Conservation Centre, we can see the two pivots and had an 1.45 or an 1.55. So, an inch and a half, give or take. Great rain. Unfortunately, not everyone in the district got that. As we can see, pretty narrow band moving through the area, but we were certainly blessed. And so what we could do is shut down, and obviously that had already taken place because our collaborator on farm was living it and had already done the shutdown. What we can do next is decide for how long we could be shut down. So the next thing I did is I went to the Grow Guru permanent probes, and I could see, wow, that rain had actually had a pretty good effect on the corn. And if we flip over, we can see on the forage sorghum, we were starting to get behind, and we were trying to irrigate the corn to get back to the forage sorghum, and the rain did that for us. And so if we have a look at the moisture graph, we can actually see that the water had penetrated very deeply. So it had gone down to the red line, which is 24 inches. It even moved the needle here at 32 inches. So it was actually a pretty great rainfall event. It soaked in well. If we go back and look at the other half of that pivot where we're sharing water with the corn, we can do the same thing, and we can see on the moisture graph that once again the blue and the green had moved, but the red hadn't. So this has gone into the 16, maybe 20 inches deep, but it had also filled the profile. The blue line came up to where it had been, the highest point that it had been previously, and the green line did the same thing. So that's pretty full at 16. Hadn't quite moved the needle there at 24 inches, but now we're sitting on some really good moisture. So we can come back and have a look at the summary graph, and that will help us decide when we need to get going again. So if you look at the stair steps in here, the stair steps are the daily water use. So that's how much the plant's drinking each day. And we can start to follow that and project out, based on the size of the stair steps, just how far we've got before we need to water that again. And judging by this, if we look at when water use was actually highest back here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7 days before it's going to be empty, but that was at peak water use. So we've probably got more moisture available than that, just because we're now past tassel, we're into grain fill, and so the water use is slowing down. If I flip over to the AquaSpy probes, looking at the subsurface drip fields, what we can see here, this was a limited water, so we were trying to only apply 12 inches of irrigation across the season. We're nowhere near that because we've actually had all this rain. This was a big rainfall event right there on the 2nd of August. That's actually when we had the wind damage to the crops out there, and then we had another big event last night, or early this morning, and we can see the effect of that. It's really filled us back up again. So if I go to the separate layer graph, and once again we can spread this out, and so we can put the top sensor at the top of the graph and the bottom sensor at the bottom of the graph. What we can see, I'll just zoom in a little bit on this so we can actually highlight what's been going on. We can see that when the line is flat, there is no root activity. When it starts to stair step, the roots are there. So we can actually observe roots have gone pretty much all the way down to 4 feet. And when we were irrigating, and bearing in mind this was the limited water event, limited water treatment, only the dark blue, the green, and the purple at 8, 12, and 16 were actually wetting up. So it's a very small wetted volume, and we can see that we were just ticking along, and while we were watering it, the crop was still taking water out from below that. We can look at another field out here, same sort of thing, where we go to the individual layers, we can actually see that once again, the pink line wasn't moving, but the blue, green, and purple, even a little bit at the orange, were moving. So it's just a small wetted volume. And meanwhile, the crop needed to supplement its usage. But we actually had a lot of good stored soil moisture out there. And that previous rainfall a week ago actually had a really marked effect. It went right through the profile. And again, early this morning did the same thing. So we can be really confident if I come back to the single line, which is the summary or the moisture line. We can then once again predict when we're going to need to irrigate, and so we can be in full control. And finally, when we're ready to go again, we can use Pivot Track to remotely start the pivots, and we can use the GrowSphere system to remotely start the subsurface drip. And here we are using these tools to stay both informed and in control, and that's fantastic, especially since I don't live in the area, and so I can really help stay in contact with this, with what's going on at the water center, and help advise on what we should be doing and helping make decisions. Catch you next time.